Rolling. Hey! Welcome to the Let's Get Lit Talk Show. I'm your host, Gravel. Nice to see you today. Today we're going to be talking about engineering and sustainable community development. Let's kick it off with some shitty tweets.
All right. At Olkaraya Geothermal, did you really think hiring a group of thugs to burn down community members' homes was an effective way to relocate displaced people for development? Hashtag lit, question mark.
At Big Dwight, when presidents only support development projects for their own political agenda, hashtag fuck Eisenhower.
At Salt Lamp Team, do you actually know what's affordable for your target communities, or are you just guessing? Hashtag know your community.
At Exxon, nice job with the multi-billion-dollar pipeline. I really like how you displaced pygmy tribes and then took even more land away when you created a national park. Hashtag kick them while they're down.
At Olkaraya Geothermal, instead of assuming Maasai community members are not educated enough to work at your power plants, how about you take the time to train and educate them? Maybe then the community would care about your projects and not hate you. Hashtag make geothermal great again.
At Salt Lamp Team, so I guess a lamp that uses a battery apparently doesn't have a battery in it, according to you.
At D-Light Sam Goldman, so you're saying the only way to change underdeveloped countries is through capitalism?
At Engineer 21778, all engineers are planners. They think they already know the answers. Poverty is not just a technical engineering problem that your answers will solve. Hashtag engineers suck.
At Exxon, stop bragging about your community engagement. Giving a community 100 plastic chairs does not offset the damage caused by a giant oil pipeline. Hashtag failed development.
At General Public Utilities, I love the smell of fresh toxins when I wake up in the morning. Hashtag not. Hashtag thanks.
At Pierre, you dipshit, what made you think the community really needed another working grain mill? Hashtag development, question mark.
Wow, thank you to our media department for that great presentation of Twitter. Today, I have Evelyn and Katie to talk about
criteria for sustainable engineering development projects.
Tell me, what do you need for a sustainable community development project to be successful? Because we've seen a lot of shitty ones.
Well, I guess I'll go first. So I think there are two main things that are really important. And the first one is full community engagement. So what that means is making sure that you're talking to all members of the community throughout the entire process, and not just talking to them, but actually listening to them. You want them to actually be involved in the project and care about what's going on. You want to go and you want to ask questions, and if they say they don't want the project, maybe don't do the project. I know it's like a little taboo, but don't do the project. And then the second thing that I think is really important is really engaged evaluations. So you want to get feedback throughout the entire process as to how the community thinks you're doing. You want to make sure that you're not using your own biases to support your project, and that your project is actually helping people and is sustainable long term. So you should check back during the project, like during the design of the project, during the construction of the project, and many years after the project has run to really see how effective you were in that community.
So another important thing is to make sure that your project is socially just. And so what it means for a project to be socially just is when it reduces risks and harm to the community, but increases the amount of opportunities and equality in the community. So for example, for the salt lamp project, that was a socially just project because it reduces risks, i.e. through less kerosene use, so that you have fewer health risks and fewer cases of fire. And then it increases overall quality by allowing people to pursue work after dark, or education, or charging phones for communication. So, yeah.
Very nice.
To talk about.
Engage your community. Talk to them and listen.
Yeah. Before even setting up any project, go there, talk to everyone, figure out the dynamics, figure out who's in charge, figure out the stakeholders, and let them decide what they want most in the project.
So if I do these things, I'll have a good project. No problems. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't put money on that. I think any project can fail, but that'll definitely set you up to make sure that you're considering all the people who should really be considered when doing a project.
I'm sure you guys are have a great time listening to these guys talk, but here's an intermission from Little Dicky.
I'm getting paid for that. Say what? I'm getting paid for that. No. I'm getting paid for that. I'm getting paid for that. No.
Oh man, boy do I love the music of the 21st century. Well, up next, I have my friends Alex and Delaney to talk with me about engineers. Hello guys. My previous guest told me things that projects need to do to be successful. What things do engineers typically do wrong that limits their success?
Yeah, so Delaney and I are going to talk a little bit about essentially the characteristics of engineers that they bring to these projects and how those characteristics stand to either positively or negatively affect their work that they're doing. So one of the most prevalent things that we looked at throughout our work is the deficiency model, which is essentially attached to almost all development projects in the sense that engineers and development workers are coming to these communities aiming to help them. And so you kind of develop this I'm better than you mindset in those workers that are striving to help these communities develop better lives or better communities or more stable economies, whatever it may be. And so this deficiency model kind of manifests itself in issues with projects, where basically it doesn't actually catch on in the community. People are manifesting these cultural indifferences in social status, economic status, and a lot of that translates into the project and whether or not it's successful in the community. So being able to identify this deficiency and develop different ways to overcome it or navigate it throughout your project is really important in a successful work. So we also look at personal investment in projects. So people who come to do development work are always very invested in, the project themselves and helping the people in, establishing whatever the work is that they're doing in these communities. And so sometimes that can lead to almost, blatant disregard for what the community actually needs. In our example, we had, we looked at a case study where Pierre actually ended up building a second grain mill when the community already had a functioning one. That's kind of an example of somebody coming in to do development work and getting almost blinded by their sheer will to help the community in whatever way that they've previously identified and not being open to changes in the dynamics of the situation or the community needs or the politics, the economics, whatever it may be.
Thank you.
For us, I think a lot of engineers come into projects with a technical bias of values. They seem to think that their way to solve community's problems or whatever the community needs help with is by using a technical solution. So this is coming in and just thinking technology can solve everything rather than looking at the political and economic factors that are actually in play, because a lot of the times those are the source of their issues rather than the technology behind it. And then another big thing that we all need to be working on is our type of listening that we do. Often we have a very basic type of listening, which consists of just listening to hear and not listening to do. So you aren't actually taking what the community is saying into account. And so we need to turn this basic listening into contextual listening and not only taking what they're saying into account, but taking their backgrounds, their knowledge, and their culture into account.
Good.
Well, that was delightful to hear from our guests. Now, time for some provocative questions. Thank you, assistant. How should an engineer balance development work and making a decent living? As an engineer, how do you overcome technology bias? What questions do you think you should ask a community when getting their opinion on starting a development project? Thanks for joining us today here on Let's Get Lit. Join us next week as we talk about